we should get started.
Yes, okay, so I was here as well. So everybody, so good evening to all. It is really my great privilege and great honor to welcome Professor Judith Kormos from the University of Lancaster, from the Linguistics and English Language Department. We have been working a lot together, and we were also lucky to have Judith teaching our teachers or sharing her expertise. So here in Slovenia, especially on the topic of how to teach or assess English language learners who have dyslexia. But Judith has been very active and very productive in many different research areas. So she has done research on, let's say, psychological aspects of second language learning. Then she's done lots of research on language learners with special educational needs. She's been involved and running many international and national projects in this research area, and she has won again lots and lots of awards. And of course, she has extensively published books, articles, and I think we will need at least 1 hour to name all of them and to give you a list. But I'm sure that today you will be, you will get lots of information on her today's talk, so on her today's topic, which is the impact of task characteristics, administration conditions, and individual differences on young learners' reading test performance. Judith is also a tester and assessor, and also I would say a polyglot. So she can speak many languages, also Russian. That's why, when she comes to Slovenia, you have to be careful because she doesn't understand quite a lot. So the Zoom and the screen is yours, and thank you again for joining us, Judith.
Thank you for the kind invitation. I think we have very long-standing cooperation with Carmen and colleagues in Slovenia. We have conducted research together, which again has won some prizes, and it's very highly cited on the role of read aloud in the text comprehension among primary school students who have and who don't have dyslexia. And it's always a pleasure to talk to a Slovenian audience. I think I've been kind of coming back either in person or kind of digitally to Slovenia for the past 5 or 6 years. Just making sure you have started the recording, right, Carmen? Yeah. So hopefully the recording is on. Right, so today I'm going to talk about a project that we conducted with young language learners in Hungary, so not very far from Ljubljana. And I think the context is in many ways quite similar to the language learning context in Slovenia. So I hope that our findings are probably transferable to your context, of course, with certain caveats. And this project, in which we investigated the impact of task characteristics and administration conditions, so how you administer a test and individual differences on young learners' reading test performance, was funded by the Educational Testing Service. It was conducted in collaboration with colleagues Tineke Brunfold from Lancaster University, Marije Michel, who was at that time employed at Lancaster University. She now works at the University of Groningen in the Netherlands, and Michael Ratajczak, our former PhD student, who helped us with the statistical analysis. Now, many of you are teachers, teacher trainers, and you assess your learners. And in Slovenia, I know there is a regular diagnostic assessment of young learners, the team in which Carmen and her colleagues also play a key role. So it is really important to think about young test takers, and they have been neglected for a long time in the world of assessment. And Carmen is actually one of the pioneers of the field who has researched and put forward some really practical implications for assessing young learners. Now, the language testing world has also recognized the widening market for young learners' language tests, especially with English, because students start learning English at a younger age. And by the time they reach secondary school, they might actually be quite proficient in English. So some of the testing market is also moving to the young learners market. So what is special about young learners and young readers? One obvious characteristic of young learners is that their reading abilities in the first language very often develop alongside their second language reading skills. I know that just like in Hungary and Slovenia, also English starts a little bit later. So the reading skills in English don't develop exactly parallel to the first language skills. So you give 1 or 2 years for the students to develop a strong foundations in their first language reading skills, which I think is really good. But in many countries, the teaching of English starts relatively early. So there is a really parallel development going on. Young learners are also still undergoing cognitive development and maturation. As they are learning the language, whereas with adult learners, where you can take their cognitive characteristics to be fairly stable. With young learners and test takers especially, we really need to pay attention to affective factors, because motivation, anxiety, emotions matter a lot more for young learners and young test takers than for older students who are much better able to regulate these affective factors. And if we have a student, a young child in a bad mood who is very anxious, not very motivated to take a test, they will not do well in the test, even though their language skills might actually be quite good. These affective factors are also quite situated, so they very much depend on the teacher, on the context, on the time of the day, etc. Whereas we see a much more stable and less variable role of affective factors for older students. And this all results in the fact that task characteristics and test administration conditions can have substantial impact on students' performance. And we really need to think about these and research these and make sure that they don't influence the validity of the test. When we research tests, and particularly in relation to test administration conditions or the role of affective factors, then what we want to achieve is that tests should be fair. And they shouldn't be biased against certain types of students and shouldn't disadvantage students when they take the test. And the new fairness standards, and I put 3 of them, which are quite relevant, on the slides, put a lot of responsibility on the shoulders of test developers, because they have to ensure that the test they design measures the intended construct and minimize the potential for tests for being affected by construct irrelevant factors, such as linguistic, communicative, cognitive, cultural, physical characteristics. We really also need to look at how subgroups of students perform and make sure that, again, they are not disadvantaged. So this was the research that we conducted with dyslexic students. How can we make sure that we get a good insight into their text comprehension abilities? And also test developers are responsible for developing accommodations when they are needed by certain types of test takers, such as those who have special needs, and also that they remove construct irrelevant barriers that interfere with students' ability to demonstrate their knowledge in the test. So in this talk, I'm going to focus on three things that we examined in on our research. How grade level, that is basically, you know, how many years the students have spent in education, impacts on reading skills and reading text performance, what the role of cognitive and first language literacy factors is, and how task characteristics and test administration conditions impact reading performance. So I'll be reporting two studies, one on testing young foreign language learners' reading comprehension, that has looked at the effects of working memory, grade level, and reading tasks. And another one which examined time extension and how giving students extra time affects their text comprehension, and whether giving more time to those students who score low on first language literacy tests, that is, those who might have dyslexia, might benefit from extended time. So let me give you a bit of theoretical background on reading comprehension. And more recent models of reading comprehension in psychology acknowledge that there are interactions between readers, texts, and the reading processes, and we need to consider these jointly, because reading differs across texts and readers have different individual characteristics. And if you are interested in reading theory, then you might want to read The Modified Simple View of Reading by Tummer and Chapman in 2012, and Perfetti's study on the importance of lexical quality. So as you can see in this flowchart, reading comprehension is basically predicted by two skills. One is general language comprehension. So to what extent someone understands a text, and very often it is actually measured in psychology with spoken language text comprehension. So if someone is not a very good comprehender of spoken language text, they are not going to be very good readers either. And as reading involves decoding written words, another key component is accurate and fluent word level decoding. And interestingly, the key underlying knowledge that influences both of these is the depth and breadth of vocabulary knowledge, both in first language, as these theories that I'm citing on this slide show, but also we know how important role vocabulary knowledge plays in second language reading as well. So when we look at texts in relation to comprehension, then there are several factors at the text level that can influence how well someone understands a text. It can be the topic. Background knowledge is a key predictor of reading comprehension. If you know more about a topic, you're going to understand it better. Cohesion and coherence, texts which are more cohesive, where coherence is explicitly marked, are again easier to understand. Text comprehension differs along genres. We know, for example, that certain simple informative texts are much easier to comprehend than literary texts. The vocabulary that is included in the text also influences comprehension. We know from, for example, vocabulary coverage studies that if there is a 98% coverage of vocabulary knowledge in the text, that is, students don't know 5 to 3% of the words in the text, they will not understand it appropriately. The syntactic complexity of a text again can influence comprehension, and the length. The longer the text, the more challenging it will be to read and understand. Interestingly, in the second language field, there is very little research on how task characteristics influence reading comprehension. And when we read when we assess reading, it's not only the difficulty of the input text that matters, but also the difficulty of the task. And I could only find actually 2 studies that looked at how the task that we use to assess reading influences performance. One by Inami and Koizumi from 2009, and they found that multiple choice questions were easier than open-ended questions. And then Löwenadler, 2019, came to the conclusion that the rational deletion task, so tests like cloze test, was a better measure of L2 specific reading abilities than multiple choice. So as these two studies that are available suggest that multiple choice questions seem to be the easiest one or easier one, and open-ended or deletion tasks are perhaps better measures of reading comprehension. We also, as I have mentioned earlier, test administration conditions also have an impact on how students perform in a text. So for young learners, for example, whether the test is conducted in a familiar setting, that is at their school, or in an unfamiliar test, for example, in an unknown testing center, can actually have quite a wide-ranging influence on their performance. Prior practice opportunities, to what extent the students are familiar with the task types, with the technology, again, can have an effect on how well students perform in a test. And whether a test is computer versus paper-based might influence results, although nowadays students are getting quite computer literate, so the effect of this factor is diminishing. And another key factor, particularly with reading, especially if the text input texts are longer, is the timing, how much time students have for completing the test, reading the text and then doing the tasks. And when we consider the last factor, the developmental factors, so the readers, in this constellation of different factors that can affect performance. So if you remember the model that I have shown you, there are text level factors, there are task level factors, there are administration conditions, and then there are also reader individual level factors. So what does research suggest in this regard? First of all, as children's literacy skills develop, so as they learn to read and they deal with longer texts, not just sentence level reading and more complex text, the lower word level decoding skills, that is, being able to recognize and understand words, become less accurate predictors of reading comprehension. So more complex skills, such as inferencing abilities, etc., predict reading comprehension. Also with maturation, the role of low levels first language skills, such as word recognition skills or phonological awareness, it diminishes and is replaced by vocabulary knowledge and background knowledge. Another key factor that can potentially influence second language performance and also second language reading is working memory, how much information one can keep in mind while reading. So working memory seems to be a better predictor of reading comprehension at a younger age, so below grade 4, because it seems to be associated with low-level word-level decoding processes. And once the automaticity in these processes develops, working memory becomes a less important predictor. And we also know that younger readers find drawing inferences based on textual information and background knowledge more difficult. They tend to rely on they tend to understand what is explicitly said in the text, and they are not very good inferencers. And then as their reading skills develop, they get better at inferencing. In our first study, where we looked at the role of working memory and task characteristics in second language reading, we drew in a couple of previous research studies, and the research studies were somewhat inconclusive. So the first one by Link et al. Is meta-analysis in 2014 found that when taken together, studies analyzed up to that point suggested that there is a moderately strong relationship between working memory and second language reading. Jiva and Farnia also found significant correlations between working memory and reading comprehension with multilingual children in Canada. Ratsus et al. 2018, bilingual children, so children who were learning English and in the Netherlands, found no significant direct links between working memory. Sorry, bilingual children who were multilingual, so their first language was not Dutch, in the Netherlands. They found no significant links between working memory and Dutch reading comprehension. So perhaps there is a differential impact of working memory based on the automaticity of lower order reading processes. This is what I already said in the previous slide. So depending on the student's age and abilities, we find a different role of working memory. So we can ask the question whether working memory is a direct or indirect predictor of second language reading. Perhaps working memory affects reading comprehension through vocabulary knowledge, because students with lower working memory might have lower vocabulary knowledge. And then also we need to consider whether working memory, which is the ability, it's a complex ability because it means that you have to maintain information over a short period of time in your working memory, but also some tests include attention regulation abilities. And as the demand of a task increases, as it becomes cognitively more complex, working memory might play a stronger role. So perhaps we can ask whether working memory interacts with reading task demands. So this is what we examined in our first study. What is the role of grade level reading task and working memory capacity in the reading comprehension accuracy of young English learners in Hungary? The participants were 94 students of English in two primary schools. And this was the schools that the students attended were content-based instruction, so CLIL classes with fairly intensive English exposure. I don't think you have these types of schools in Slovenia, or maybe they are just being introduced right now, but students start in these schools very early with English language learning, and they start learning subjects in English or through English as well. So the students, even though the students had 6 to 7 years of intensive English language learning, there was quite a large variation in the students' attainment. So some were still at the A2 level, whereas some others at the B2 level. And their age ranged between 11 to 14 years. We had some working memory tests that investigated the storage and processing functions of working memory. We had digit span tasks, so students had to recall numbers backwards and forwards, and we had a symmetry span task, which assesses, again, complex working memory capacity. Sorry, the slide moved too fast. You can see the task on the right-hand side of the screen. So what was the reading input and the reading tasks? 4 different texts with quite similar tasks. So the students had to understand an email, a school news article, an academic text, and a short story. Most of the items were multiple choice, and one also had a choice between a sentence in the text, so they had to insert a sentence in the right place. Okay, so the procedures, the students were familiarized with the test. They practiced the test with their teachers, or a practice version, obviously not the one that they took. We piloted this, the materials. The students took the working memory tests on a computer, and then we administered the language test to them. It was almost like a whole day. The students had breaks and got refreshments, etc. So it was tough, but we rewarded the students. The analysis looked at task performance. We used descriptive statistics, or the working memory tests were kind of combined into one score, and we use what is called generalized linear mixed effect modeling. It's quite a complex statistical procedure that I will not give you the details of today, because what is really interesting for us are the results. So what can you see in this slide? There is some variation in performance across the tasks. If you look at the tasks, the students seem to be better at understanding the relatively simple email. And interestingly, the school news text was a bit more difficult. But if you look at the grade 7 students, so the blue columns, you can see that there is much less variation at grade 7. So and our grading in Hungary is similar to the grading in Slovenia. So you can think about grade 7 students in Slovenia. Overall, you can also see that the students are performing quite well. So the one is like 100%. And the grade 7 students are scoring at, safely in the 80% range, except for the school news task. The working memory tests, again, students had relatively good working memory, so they were able students. In this respect, we have to be careful with generalizing the results. And what is interesting for us is this relatively complex table, but just look at the two gray figures, which show what is a significant result and what is a significant predictor. We can see that grade is a significant predictor. You saw it in the slides that students at grade 7 are better than students at grade 6. So that's in a way good, because it shows that actually students, that 1 extra year of English instruction does matter. So students in grade 7 are much better than students at grade 6. And it also shows that the test that is used, because the students did exactly the same test, is sensitive enough to pick up differences between grade 6 and grade 7 students. Again, that's something that you would want in your test, that it discriminates students who had more instruction versus those who had less. And you can also see that working memory is a significant predictor. However, even though working memory is a significant predictor, when we take everything together in these statistical models, then grade, reading task, and working memory altogether only account for 4.76% of the variance in the students' reading comprehension score. So in a way, we were investigating things that make some difference, but not a lot of difference in the students' performance. So if we want to understand what influences students' reading performance, we probably need to look at other factors. And we didn't investigate, for example, vocabulary knowledge or syntactic knowledge, which accounts for a much larger percentage. But mind you, that's not really what we were interested in. We also need to remember that the 4 texts differed in genre, topic, linguistic complexity, etc. But we had no task effects. Task type didn't influence the results. And also the tasks were selected response formats, so multiple choice items. Mostly, again, we saw that they might be easy. So maybe, again, one lesson perhaps is not to use multiple choice items all the time in computer administered tests, which is, for example, what the ETS test is. Also, we need to remember that the set of items in reading tasks targeted a mix of reading skills. If you remember, I showed you in the previous PowerPoint slide that there were a mixture of subskills that items targeted. I didn't spend time on explaining them, but these that might also account for the time for the findings. And also, what might happen is when you assess reading, you will have to remember that the performance is a result of the interaction between the text difficulty and the task difficulty. And perhaps even though the tests were of different genre or different length, because the tasks were similar, these effects were canceled out. So what can we conclude is that working memory plays a significant but small role in young English language learners' reading comprehension. The fact that there is only a small role suggests that there is not a significant bias in this test towards students who might have lower working memory capacity, because remember, we are not assessing students' working memory capacity. We want to make sure that students with lower working memory capacity also perform well on the test. we see a small amount of advantage for high working memory learners, though, which might be due to the underlying higher level of reading competence these learners might have attained. So higher working memory capacity learners might be better readers, but luckily there's not a huge systematic bias in the test towards these students. So what are the implications for this, at least for the validation of this young learners test? One of the implications is that for this context, which was a content language integrated context, the target domains were well selected. The students did relatively well. The tasks were sensitive to detect development over time. There's no bias for high working memory, not a large bias for high working memory capacity learners. But if you construct tests, you really want to also assess students' ability to perform differently on text type or task, and this is not what we have found in this test, because why would you have 4 tasks in text type if the students perform exactly in the same way in them? So that's one part of our study. And let me move on to the other part of our study, where we looked at reading comprehension and first language predictors and time extension. So when we look at predictors of second language comprehension, I have already mentioned that certain factors play a significant role, and you can see this in this pie chart represented approximately to what extent a second language comprehension is predicted by different components. So you can see that vocabulary knowledge, grammar knowledge, background knowledge, cognitive factors, and also first language skills. Students' underlying first language skills play some role in text comprehension. First language skills help students with phonological decoding, and they allow students to transfer the higher order reading processes. Vocabulary assists with word recognitions, word meaning, syntactic integration, because words also carry syntactic information, and also inferencing. Second language grammar helps students with syntactic integration. Background knowledge assists learners to establish coherence, integrate the background knowledge with what they read in the text. And then cognitive factors coordinate all these processes. So when we look at first language comprehension and second language comprehension, then we can say that there are certain underlying language independent linguistic and cognitive skills that predict both of them. And someone who is a good reader in their first language, they are generally good readers in the second language as well. Because students also transfer their text comprehension strategies from one first language to the other language. And that's what creates this strong link between first language text comprehension and second language text comprehension. So in our second study, we were interested in whether there is an effect of timing. So whether students solve a reading or perform a reading text under a standard administration condition or an extended timing condition based on their underlying first language skills. And the reason why we asked this question in this way, and we didn't directly compare dyslexic and non-dyslexic students as we did in a previous study that we did with Milena and with Carmen and Milena Kosak-Babuder, was that unlike in Slovenia, we don't have standard assessment procedures for dyslexia in Hungary. and a lot of the dyslexia assessment is quite unreliable. So we couldn't rely on existing diagnosis of students' dyslexia because that wouldn't have been accurate. So instead, we use certain underlying skills that can predict dyslexia, and we didn't create a cutoff point between dyslexic and non-dyslexic students, but we measured their first language abilities on a scale. What does previous research tell us about time extension and the impact of time extension? In the first language field, there is quite a lot of research on time extension, but the findings are inconclusive. In 2019, Duncan and Purcell found in an overview of existing studies that about half or more than half of the student studies, so 16 out of 28, demonstrated that students with specific learning difficulties were not unfairly advantaged by time extension. That is, time extension was fair to them. They didn't gain extra by getting more time. However, 12 studies showed that if we had given more time to students who didn't have SPLDs, so specific learning difficulties, they would also have performed better. This is what the Khan, Nir, and Alcobi study also shows. In other words, the scores of the students with SPLDs were overinflated. They gained proportionately more. Greg and Nelson's meta-analysis also demonstrated that there is a benefit of time extension for both adult and adolescent students, especially those with SPLDs, because they score significantly higher in reading tests when they get extended time than their peers with no SPLDs. So at the moment, there is some research that suggests that students with SPLDs gain from extra time, but the question is, would those who don't have SPLDs also gain from extra time? And to what extent reading tests should be timed? In our study that we conducted, again in Hungary, we had 100 students. 18 students had officially identified SPLDs. Remember that, you know, that diagnosis might not have been accurate. So that means that maybe those students, not all of them had SPLDs. That's probably less likely. What is more likely that we would find students who have SPLDs among the 82 as well, so those who were not identified. The students' age range was between 13 and 15 roughly. They were between A2 and B level, B1 level proficiency. And this time we used the APTIS test of the British Council. And this is, again, a young learners test. Again, mostly multiple choice questions, as you can see, except for the last one where students have to reorder the sentences. And the test is slightly different because it starts with just sentence comprehension, then it has a short text and a long text comprehension, and the test which assesses cohesion. And there's also a vocabulary and grammar test, but I'm not going to talk about it today. We used tests, subtests of a validated instrument that was developed in a European project, but because it is only available for a fee, so we had to also pay for it for our research. It's not very frequently used in Hungary, unfortunately, but it is a validated instrument. So there were 3 tasks which were performed in the student's first language, Hungarian, a timed word reading task, in which students had to read real common words, so words which are frequent in Hungarian, then words which exist in Hungarian but are rare, and then non-words which are phonologically possible in Hungarian but they don't exist. There was a phoneme deletion test, which is a typical test for phonological awareness, and really usually a good predictor of dyslexic type difficulties. And another component was rapid automated naming. Again, it is very frequently used in dyslexia diagnosis because dyslexic students do not only have challenges with phonemic awareness and word level decoding, but also the speed of processing. And the rapid automated naming test is a good one in this regard. And we also have a first standardized or relatively standardized first language reading comprehension test that is developed by the Educational Research Institute in Hungary every year, and that assesses students' reading comprehension at specific school levels. So we could actually draw on that test. And it requires reading longer texts, news, popular history, short stories, etc. So what the students did was that they did the test under standard timing conditions and also under extended timing conditions. And the standard timing was I think 25 minutes, and then the extended timing added 25%. So it wasn't a 50% extension, just a 25% extension. Students also did the first language reading comprehension test and the dyslexia tests. Just very briefly, if you are interested on the role of low-level first language skills, so the rapid automated naming, the phonological awareness test, and the non-word recognition test. So by the time students are age 13 and 15, they only play a very small role. So you can see it's the 3%, it's the number 3 in this pie chart. And this again supports what I had said earlier in the presentation, that these low-level skills play a less important role as students' literacy develops. But what is interesting is that the first language reading comprehension, so the test that the Hungarian ministry put together where students have to read longer texts, itself explains 25% variance in the second language reading performance. So it shows that actually students' first language literacy does play an important role, in addition to vocabulary and grammar, which explain 54% of the variance in reading comprehension. And then the low-level first language skills, so the ones that directly only explain 3% of the variance, they actually explain 25% variance in the first language reading comprehension test. So the low-level skills actually are relatively good predictors of the first language longer text comprehension. Okay, so let me move on to the statistical analysis. Unfortunately, what we have found was that the test timing had no significant impact on students' performance. There was a variation across tasks. So unlike in the other study, in the ETS study, where we found no variation across tasks, in this study, we do find variation across tasks. We find a significant effect of the first language skills of the students, as I have already shown you in the pie chart. And there is some interaction between first language skills and text comprehension, especially when it comes to the reading of longer text. So I don't know if you can see my cursor, but if you look at the low LTC by L1 skills, you can see 3 stars. So students who had lower first language skills, they performed worse in the long text task. So as the task gets more challenging in the second language, first language skills play a more significant role. So what are the key findings relating to task and first language effects? Students were more likely to answer comprehension questions correctly on the sentence comprehension task, so the short task, and less likely on the long text comprehension task, so that was more difficult. The sentence comprehension task was actually too easy. So if we look at the facility values, That seems to be a too easy task for this population, and the long text comprehension is too difficult for the Hungarian learners that we investigated. The impact of first language skills varied depending on the reading task. The low-level skills predicted short text comprehension. I think this is wrong. So they predicted long text comprehension, but not short text comprehension. And in the standard timing conditions, students with above average first language skills scored higher on the sentence and short text comprehension tasks. So there is a bit of difference in how different factors influence comprehension under the standard and extended timing condition, because in the longer test administration condition, first language skills were related to performance on the text cohesion task. But these are not so important findings in this regard. The most important finding is the one on timing, because that was the real focus of our study. And what our study seems to suggest is that test timing in this type of research, where the longest text is 350 words and where students have to perform multiple choice tasks, the students really don't gain by getting 25% extra. We also timed the students. So we asked the students to raise their hands if they are finished, if they have finished, and we timed how long it took them. And what we also found this way is that the typical standard time was sufficient for 95% of the participants. And when they did the test in the extended timing conditions, so when they had more time, then we looked at, okay, who were the students who didn't finish during the standard time, but went over to the extended time. And none of these students had actually officially identified as PLDs. We also saw, when we conducted the research, that actually the standard time was about 35% longer than students on average needed. So when we measured students' performance, students finished a lot earlier. So maybe the conclusion that we would draw is that if we take the fact that the maximum time a student required to finish the test was 35 minutes, then if we take the average test completion time, which was 24 minutes, then if we add 50% to an average test completion time, so that is when you take everybody who did the test and you average their completion time, then it might allow every student to display the best of their abilities. So lesson is that pilot your reading test, measure how long the students on average need, and then add 50% to that, and that allows everybody to finish in time and display the best of their knowledge. So what are the issues for test design and development? You need to consider the potential role of cognitive and first language related factors when you design test tasks. You have to measure timing and add generous margin to allow accessibility. You really have, if you administer reading tests, and I think we will do that, especially due to pandemic conditions, really have to consider the limitation of computer administered task formats, because very often we use multiple choice questions or reordering, because the short text, you know, if you would use automated scoring, for example, the short answer task might be problematic because the computer will you know, score perhaps a spelling mistake as incorrect. So we have to consider whether we can actually use other task formats as well. And also think about how sensitive the tasks and the texts jointly or separately are for detecting differences between students, because when you assess, you really want to see differences between students as well. So thank you for your attention, and thank you to my collaborators from Lancaster, Groningen, and Hungary. So time for questions.
Thank you very much, Judith. Very, very interesting. Lots of information, lots to take in.